letting me participate. I've had a bunch of really interesting conversations with Maxim leading up to this. So for GIS, Geographic Information Systems, I've been involved with GIS for a little bit more than 2 decades. And I was originally trained as a biologist, did a bunch of diving out in Florida. Used to do habitat assessment, huge swaths of space, takes a lot of manpower, very labor intensive. And it was during those studies that I discovered aerial imagery, flybys, satellite imagery, got into that out there, and that led right into geographic information systems. Vector and raster realizations of imagery, spatial analysis, mapping, cartographic display, all that kind of fun stuff. So while I was out there, I was contacted by SDSU, brought out here, helped set up their Caesar lab. I don't know if anybody's worked with SDSU. And then also did some collaboration projects with UCSD while I was out there. And then my wife happened to work for the city and said, hey, there's an opportunity over at trash collection of all things. And actually that's where I first met Margot. And it's interesting because I've instructed, I've worked on open data projects for GIS. I've worked in a formal capacity as City GIS Enterprise Lead. I have only been in this position for a little bit more than a year, but city's actually very diverse, as is the community, in terms of utilizing geographic data. Almost any business that you can think of has some type of spatial component to it, and that's what we focus on. Capturing coordinates associated with attributes, displaying those in certain ways, relating those to other aspects of a database, and then, to a certain degree, combining those into various applications for study and other uses. So, and I would like to take 10 minutes real quickly because another capacity that I serve at the city is back in 1997, we have so many regional entities here that utilize GIS that they wanted to apply some level of standard to that. And so we used to have the RUIS program. And in 1997, that evolved into what's now known as SANGIS, which is a JPA, a Joint Powers Authority, which is owned by both the city and the county. So we go in 50-50 on that. And the purpose of that is so that SANGIS can perform QA/QC on all of our geospatial data that we reposit there, but also serve in an open data capacity to provide a portal for the community and then also secure some of the data that's served back to the county and the city. So if you have not had an opportunity to go to the sangis.org and look at their data warehouse, it's right there on the front page. I think there's a real brief EULA. You go in, you click on it, and then everything, there's about almost 300 layers there of different types of information that are free for you to download. If you would like that in a DVD format for whatever reason, feel free to go to their desk, which is up off Overlook, where the county operations center is, that campus, the new campus. And I think it's like $70 if you want to pay to have it in that format. So most people set up batch processes, either through commercial ventures or hobby ventures or education ventures, and we get thousands and thousands and thousands of hits each month to pull that data down. It's dynamically updated. We do weekly retrievals there on the city side. So what we do is we hit against their repository, pull it over, and then we do internal distribution as well. And the reason that I mention that is, in addition to those 300 layers, there is a lot of metadata associated with those data sets. And if you get in contact with those people, you have an opportunity to find other data sets which might not be featured within that repository. Okay? City and county are very careful about what data they share, so we might be constrained on what we're able to give you. However, we've had multiple opportunities where somebody got in touch with me and said, can you scrub a data set that I might not otherwise have access to? And we took care of it and modified it so that we could provide it. I do sit on the management committee for SANGIS that has a board as well, and that has major initiatives every year that we go over to make sure that we're providing the highest quality data, the most data that we can. And so this is going to be an exciting initiative for me to work with Maxim to figure out how we can augment those already available data sets and provide even more back to the community. Yeah. So within the city, GIS is interesting. About 2 decades ago, we were a powerhouse within the region in terms of setting up applications and providing the community with new updated data. We've waned a little bit because we haven't really had enterprise leadership, which means we're really strong in the silos across departments. So if you have requirements or interests in department-specific data, we're very strong there, and I'm happy to operate as a contact to put you in touch with people if you want to drill down. If you want a higher level, broad spectrum picture of what the city does, I'm happy to provide some business cards here for contacts as well, and feel free to get in touch with me. We work shoulder to shoulder with Sandan. We work shoulder to shoulder with county. And then there are 18 municipalities and regional entities within this area that also participate at some level with SANGIS. Back to the city, we've got about, there's about 8 major operational departments within the city that provide GIS. And it's very interesting because there are different strategies for how to generate and provide the best data within an organization. And so if you go up to the County of LA, they've done a very good job of defining a job class, which is GIS specific, and hiring those people to do data generation, data QA/QC, and data provision that goes out. The city does not have a GIS class, so we use information systems analysts or program analysts, or actually maybe 2 other types of classification to generate that data. So needless to say, our data is varied in terms of standard quality, but that's also project and initiative specific. Okay. So back to the operational departments. We have information that's pertinent to where I started, environmental services. So when I was hired, we had a fleet of about 250 trash trucks in the city, and they used to take hard copy Thomas Brothers pages. There was a red crayon, a blue crayon, and a yellow crayon. It got outlined, it got dispatched in the morning, everybody came in, had 200 drivers, they'd all hit the counter, they'd all get their piece of paper, jump in the cab, and go. And if you broke down, you might have a working radio, you might not. You might have, I learned that there are about 5 or 6 different signs that you could throw out the window if somebody's passing you to let you know you're operational, you have a full load, you're headed to the dump, you're not headed to the dump, you're going back out, that type of thing. So they hired me to come in, and we put GPS, vehicular GPS, on all the trucks, and that's a $250,000 asset, and we optimized the routes. So up to that point, if I was a senior driver, I was assured that I had very cush routes. For 2 weeks in a row, I would have light trash, they call it granny trash, you know, because somebody feeds their cat, they go out and they put a couple baggies in the trash can, and there's not that much weight associated with it. And I could drive a long distance between houses, which means I wouldn't have to operate that side lever and grab a can, and I wouldn't have to get out and move any cans. Very easy routes. The rookies would come in, and they would be going 3 loads to the dump, where everybody else would be going 2. They would have issues associated with the arms and the mechanics on the trucks because they'd be breaking down all the time because they had all the heavy stuff. And they had the houses where they would have to get out every 5th house, go down a flight of stairs, grab that can, pull it back up to the street, empty it, and then leave it there. All right. So when they brought me in, they were looking for some equity amongst routes. They were looking for some route optimization, which we did through computer models. And then we did some validation associated with the GPS. So throughout my career with the city, I've been working with various fleets doing GPS, and we do have some data associated with AVL, but most of it's historical, so we don't serve that dynamically. However, I spent the last 2 days with Esri, one of our vendors that supports our GIS efforts, and we have some very good mechanisms in place for now producing maps in a very easy fashion, in a very standard fashion, in a branded fashion. I don't know if you mentioned the accolades that the team got today. The mayor announced that there's a new branding effort for the websites at San Diego, so we're very happy about that, and that will be on all of our maps going out. But in association with those city maps that are produced and branded, we will also have metadata associated with that. So in the community, if you see a map, you will, from here out, be able to recognize that as a city map. You will have a mechanism whereby you can identify a contact, and you can get in touch with that contact at the city, and feel free to do so and search for the data sets which are relevant to the type of work that you want to do. So one thing that I'm very excited about at this meeting is learning, I guess last time you selected what your 3 initiatives are going to be, and you select those based on the amount of work that's going to go into them. Is that correct?
No, we based it pretty much on popularity, but people were instructed to think about feasibility and sort of what like a quick win kind of project and the actual use utility.
And I think with GIS data, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. It's already prepped for you, it's already scrubbed, it's robust, it's comprehensive in most cases, and it's easy to load and work with. We are a hybrid organization at the city. We have Esri products, we've had Integraph products, we've got Google products, we do have our standard products, but there are a lot of different ways for analysts to work with the vendors, to work with the community, to generate their maps and applications, and publish those out to whoever the viewership is going to be. And then, it's just as easy to monitor that, build reports around it, and that type of thing. We're happy about the branding initiative. We're happy about the standard mapping initiative. We also are very happy to be participating with San Diego Regional GIS Community Corporation, SDRGC. And they meet once a month, and they happen to be meeting tomorrow at Caltrans. And if you have an interest in GIS, those are great meetings to attend because usually you've got 30 to 40 SMEs in the GIS world representing all types of vendors, community, and governmental entities. They usually have 2 or 3 good presentations, and they have a very good series of working groups. So one of the work groups that I recently completed was a regional standardization of metadata. Metadata can be exceptionally cool if you're a consumer. Metadata can be a real pain if you are the owner and generator of the data and you need to keep that updated dynamically. And up to this point, we've been pretty disparate in terms of how we generated metadata and what went out. Up to this point, SanGIS has updated all of its metadata to standard. County is at about 80% and city is about 30%, with an effort to complete probably within the next 4 months. So, needless to say, you've got another level of communication to look at when you go and you download that data. Yeah, I've also had very interesting conversations with Maxim because in the city open data initiative, metadata is going to be critical, but I don't know that we've got our arms around what's going to occur with that beyond the baseline development of our inventory, all right? But we are going to have staff that keeps that up moving forward because we owe that to the rest of our viewership.
So when you said metadata, they're referring just to metadata associated with your set, so you mean metadata around all the data sets?
Excellent. Yeah, so at SanGIS, it's metadata associated with all of the geospatial layers and the geodatabases. We have to have a contact name. We have to have a phone number associated with that. We have to have a date of generation. We have to have a summary of what the data is and how it was derived. And then we have to have a summary of any post-processing that went along with that so you can understand what the level of quality is. At the city, we have some minimum requirements, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we need to have a contact, we need to have a phone number associated with that, and then we need to have departmental information associated with date of generation. I think we're still defining what else needs to be added beyond that. So if you have recommendations or if you've had initiatives that you've worked on in the past where you've run into problems or gaps in that knowledge, or you've gotten bad data, or it's been labor intensive in having to scrub it or correct it, this might be a good opportunity to talk to Maxim and provide some recommendations for what we need to provide in order to make that data pursuable and usable. Okay. Other operational departments in the city, we work very closely along with ESD, who does trash collection, recycling collection, and greenery. We also do Public Works, which does a lot of the conflict resolution and uses GIS critical to that. So if we come out to your street and we need to replace a water line, we will do a search 8 weeks into the future and identify if there is any other trenching requirements for work associated with electrical lines, paving, asphalt, slurry, urban forestry, any of the trees out there, and then the application optimizes that so that we only have to hit your street once. Okay? And then the ideal there is that we try to reduce the number of times that we trench a street down to once every 3 to 4 years. Okay? We have applications like that over at Public Works, which does all of our engineering and planning for our facilities. We have layers associated with not only the facilities at the city, but also the facilities within the community. That includes Park and Rec, which gets, it seems like every community meeting I go out to, people want to know, where can I get a integrated application that lets me know where parks are, the size of the parks, what kind of attributes do they have with them. If I want to do a search for the nearest swimming pool, I want to light that up. If I want to do a search for alcohol permits or the availability of soccer goals, that's available as well. So we have templates that we'll be setting up to push that data out as well. So you're going to see a lot of ArcGIS Online applications associated with community use surrounding Park and Rec. They have irrigation use. We have another initiative by the mayor, and of course you probably heard the governor's announcement a few weeks back, drought restrictions. So we'll use predictive analysis to look at an aerial image, and we will classify the land cover and say they have either lawn or xeriscape or non-native vegetation or high-level canopies, and maybe we will combine that with LiDAR to determine what type of things they are. And based on that, we have an expectation that they need these irrigation capacities, and if they're not meeting that, then maybe we need to go send somebody over, have a conversation with them about how they might be able to scale back and use less water.
Would that be stuff that you are doing in concert with the state, or will there be someone like you in every county sort of doing that same kind of work?
Right. So for, there will be someone like that to a certain degree within each agency. There will be an enforcement or a compliance group that operates at the state level that expects the municipal or the county entities to report back to them about what preventative measures they're taking. So it might be as easy as, or not as easy, as simple as, we invoked a policy that says you can only wash your car once every other day. Unfortunately, that doesn't do much for me in terms of compliance if I only have 5 inspectors that are out there driving random routes. But if I do an assessment through our public utilities group that says, I know what the expected baseline is for irrigation based on historical records as well as our land cover analysis, and I know that we are charging them X amount of dollars for actual usage. Anytime you see a deviation of the actual against the predicted on that graph, we might call you up and have a conversation about whether you're using the water in the way that we think you should be using it. Okay? DSD is our Development Services Department. They issue permits. They had a little write-up in the Reader. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks back with a nice map up front. That's their PTS application. And the article was a little bit light. How are we doing on time? Are we there? Yeah.
Oh, you got another 7 minutes. Well, maybe you should wrap up and we have 7 minutes of questions.
That's fine. We do have applications associated with environmental compliance. Anytime we do a CIP project, we have to go to our DSD department, and we have a geographical database of state-mandated archaeological information called the CRIS data set. I can't dig on native lands. I can't dig anywhere that we have paleontological fossil finds of significance. I can't dig anywhere that we have Native American artifacts until we get clearance from certain agencies. So every time we do a CIP project, we have to check against that to make sure that we're right. And that all comes in those geospatial layering. So we also develop risk assessment zones in working with, Chris used to work with police, and he knows all about incident response. We do that for fire as well. We're in a huge wildfire area, so we do dynamic response associated with GIS, and this is also data that's available to you. So if anybody does environmental assessment associated with a fire boundary, and it might be regrowth, it might be fuel balance, it might be impacts or control based on met stations. That's a big, there's a huge hobby community out there associated with identifying all the met stations and then trying to predict the weather more accurately than the weatherman does in the coming week. We look at that stuff, and then we've also got public utilities, which is responsible for our water, wastewater, and recycled water, and that's huge for asset management, which is going to be one of the biggest initiatives, at least on the tech side for the city, coming up within the next 2 years. So right now we've got a series of legacy applications which have been built around geospatial data, planning, scheduling, asset management, lifecycle regen, and we'll be taking those and replacing those with an EAM module, Enterprise Asset Management, within SAP. And the only reason that I mention this is because there's a ton of derivative data which falls down to the SanGIS repository that you can have access to for whatever you're looking at. Yeah.
What is CIP?
CIP? So capital improvement projects are the mechanism whereby the city is able to do major projects, and they might be multi-site, they might be grant funded, they might be annual funded, but these are the types of improvement projects that you will see with repaving sidewalks. You'll see associated with conditional reassessment and improvement of the water pipes, the recycled water pipes. Yeah, did you have a question real quick?
Yeah, well, if we're on a tight budget of time, I'm trying to jump in, so,
Yeah.
but not about CIP, but.
Did you want to close out maybe, and then we can make that a general question?
Absolutely. We can wrap now, and then we can drop into questions if you like.
That'd be great. Because one question I have is,
Oh, wait, you have the wrap?
Yeah.
So
So we have a data repository that you all have access to through SanGIS. Feel free to contact any of your city participants here if you need additional information associated with the departments, or I'm happy to leave my business card. This is something that I'll probably be attending meetings as they move forward. Yeah, so this is my first exposure to your meeting, but it sounds interesting. I kind of want to see the stuff that you're working on, because there's other community groups out there besides yours that we are fully supporting as well. Yeah.
well, a big concern is I've done a bunch of advocacy work, and it's always been a hassle to go to SanGIS, and like I don't have $100 to pay to do a map of something that might benefit the community. Like in Pacific Beach, I think we're up to